ikifika anaweza tusomea. Anyone can just read it for us. And anyway, this session is open to all the men. Mnaweza karibia, hii ni session yenyu kabisa. Yeah. Yes. Amazing, amazing. So, nataka kuwapatia backstory of who Gideon was. At this particular point, ilikuanga time ya Gideon, he lived in Israel at that particular point. So, what happened in Israel at that particular point? They disobeyed God. And when they disobeyed God, God allowed their enemies to actually come and inflict on them. Wakuje yani kuwanyanyasa. And these enemies were called the Midianites. So the Midianites, when you look on kujanga, you see, if, let's say for example, I'll come, mi ni adui yako, si ndio? So expect adui yako akikam, atakuja kuibie, akufanyie all manner of things, and then he'll take your things to become his things, si ndio? Like nakuja ni kuibie simu ikuwe simu yangu, nakuja ni kuibie pesa niitumie, si ni kweli? So at this particular point, when the Israelites walikuwa, the Midianites used to come, and walikuwa wana terrorize, basically oppressing them in the sense of, let's say wanaenda Israelites ni siku yao ya kuvuna kwa shamba. So what they will do, the Midianites will come and actually take those things away. Wanakuja wanachukua produce yao, and then not even go and actually sell it or even go to consume it themselves. Wanaenda kuzichoma. So ni ile tunakudharau na pia tunakuoppress. Na nielewa? So that's particular point when Gideon alikuwa anapatikana, when he was being found with the Lord, what happened is Gideon was actually in a cave somewhere. You get? Hiyo mazao amechukua ameenda kuficha. But the interesting part about this is the Lord is calling him a mighty man of valor. Versions zingine zinamuita a mighty hero. And you ask yourself, how can at this particular point, and remember when God is actually calling Gideon a mighty man of valor, he comes from the most least from his society. Basically he was poor. First of all, mko na shida kama inchi. Si ndio? At least ukiwa na shida kama inchi, unaweza sema at least niko na pesa mahali nimefugia. Unanielewa? Uko na ka security. But now for Gideon, he didn't even have that. And that, at that particular point, Gideon is found in a cave hiding. And then the Lord is coming and telling him that you are a mighty man of valor. That basically means God does not see you according to your own situation at that particular point. He sees you to what he created you to be. And he doesn't care about other people's opinions about you or even where you came from. Because sometimes as men, we've allowed ourselves to allow the circumstances in our life to actually dictate who we are. Meaning, just because you came from a humble background, you came from a poor family, that means everything about your life has to be measured with poverty. You understand? So your whole life unasemanga hata ukipata pesa unasemanga mimi sinanga do. But uko na do. It's because of the mindset you've allowed your circumstances to speak over your life. Unanielewa? Are we together? So you find in yourself that God comes and actually calls this man, you a mighty man of valor. And when God is saying that, God does not intend on using anybody's opinion about you. It's only God's word over other people's opinions. So why do you usually care about what people say about you? Bona opinions za watu wengine zinakuwa zimekushika hivyo sana. Jumsia hajaniona niko fiti nini. So nda kuanga venye huyu jamaa ananiona. Usheka chini ukajiuliza God anakuwa anakaa nani? Una get? Gideon at his most pain, hiyo time ana feel ako fearful. Uko fearful unashindwa ndapatikana manzi. But you find at that particular point, that's when actually the Lord comes and affirms him that you are a mighty man of valor. Nanielewa? Are we together? And tukiendelea, one thing you have to understand about God is, God, in the book of Isaiah chapter 46 verse 10, I'll just read the first part, and it says, I make known the end from the beginning and the ancient times. What is still to come, I say my purpose will stand up. Actually trust in the Lord to get you to your plan and purpose that he has for your life. Unanielewa? But most of the times we'll allow circumstances to dictate who we are and actually fare off from where God is actually taking us. And that, so I want us to look at, so tumeona God has come and he has called Gideon a mighty man of valor. But when he calls you a mighty man of valor, God amekuja amekuaffirm, amekwambia, my son, maybe let's say your name is John. John, I see you as a great man. I see you not, let's say sahi, you're not performing well in school. Anakwambia, I see you more than your grades. I see you as a successful man. So the question is, how do you get to that particular point? Si ni kweli? Because in this story of Gideon, at the end tunajuanga, he ended up with the 300 men and ended up saving Israel from the hands of the Midianites. So how does God now call you to that other step? He has called you already a mighty man of valor. I want you to repeat after me. I am a mighty man of valor. I am a mighty man of valor. Perfect. So let's look at Judges, the same chapter, verse 25 to 23. I think I can read it for you guys so that we can save on time. Says verse 23 to verse 25, verse 25, and it says, that night the Lord said to Gideon, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one that is 7 years old, pull down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole standing beside it. Then build an altar to the Lord your God here on this hilltop sanctuary, laying stones carefully. Sacrifice the bull as a burnt offering on an altar using as fuel as the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. So nataka tusome pole pole, unanielewa? Inasema the Lord akamwambia, I need you to pull down your father's altar. Your father's altar called Baal. That's an idol. And cut down the Asherah poles standing beside it. So let me paint this picture. Ushesikia ile verse inasemanga, Yesu actually, this is what Jesus says in his word. Many are called but few are chosen. Sindio? So, many of you here are called, to me repeat, God has called you a mighty man of valor. Sinukweli? Do you actually believe that? The Lord has called you a mighty man of valor. But the same Bible says, many are called but few are chosen. Meaning, for those few people are the ones who are ready to take the cost. And the cost is for Gideon. He was supposed to go to his father's house and pull down those altars. Is of Baal, those idols that was in his father's house that they were worshipping. And for context, I want to put it in our own context right now. In our own homes or in our own lives, altars can be things like your phone. Idols can be things like your phone. Idols can be things like lying on a consistent basis. Idols in your life can be women. Idols in your life can be what else? Example, dishonesty. And those idols in your life, those are what we call sin patterns in our lives. That the Lord is actually highlighting as meant to us. Because you find, for example, this bird was set up by his father. Meaning, if you kama babako ameanzisha hizi vitu, pia wewe utafuatilia. Juu ni kitu ya familia, si ndio? Let me give you an example. For example is a man, let's say a grandfather, started off alianzanga family yake, and then he went and married off 2 women. Sindio? And then the son, what does the son do? He goes on and marries 3 women. So that's polygamy in the family. Sindio? And you know polygamy in the Bible is actually not, is a sin. Sindio kweli? And then now the son, uko kampo kokole, unafuatana na Njeri, leo uko na Fei, kesho uko na Stephanie. Unaget? So unapata shida si wewe kukatia mademu wengi. Shida ilianza na mzae uko juu. Unanielewa? Na sometimes it's not even our fault. For some of us, wengine ni mademu. Wengine wetu ni pombe. Tuliona Guka kikunywa. Venye we saw our granddad drink, our father akaanza pia kukunywa. Alafu the first alcohol you ever took, ulianza kukunywa pombe, ni mzae wako alikuambia, shika, tukae chini kama wazee sasa, jumekuwa kijana mkubwa. The first drink you ever drank was your father who gave it to you. Then, unapata maisha yako as a young person, you're struggling with alcoholism. Is it your fault? Is it your fault? Sasa zingine unaonanga unasikiaga sana samanga ati sijui kuna generational curses sijui nini. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Ni pattern tu. Ni msee mmoja alianzisha, mwingine akafuata, ni ikakuwa saa mtindo ya maisha, ikakuwa saa culture familia yenu. But now what the Lord is asking us to do is actually to pull those things down as men. Because those are the only things are going to prevent you to become the person that you are. Because niko very sure, hapa kila mse tukiambia, simameni msewe dream yako, hakuna dream hapa mse anataka kuwa mlevi. Ukweli uongo. Hapa nikiambia mabrother simame, kuna mtu hapa atakujulikana tiulu kwa na wasichana kila mahali. Si ndio? Another example, if I make all of you to stand, hakuna mtu hapa dream yake ni kukosa kuwa mse successful. But unapata your granddad wasn't successful. Mzee hakuwa successful. Pia unasema kwetu hakunanga msemfiti, so hata mimi acha nifuate tu laini. Unaenda unaanzisha biashara ya nduthi, lakini sisemi ati biashara ya nduthi ni mbaya, but hiyo ndio kitu God amekwambia ufanye na maisha yako for the rest of your life. Yeah? Hiyo ndio life amekuitia. There's more to life than that. Ni ukweli. But those are the things now the Lord is actually calling us to do. That we need to pull those down. For me personally, ilikuwa vitu kaa pona. Na saa zingine vitu zingine ni si ndo tunajileteanga. Unaget? Si wenyewe ndo tunazianzishanga. Si huwezi blame team zae. Unanipata? Huwezi blame team zae wako, huwezi blame babu yako, huwezi blame familia yako. Ni wewe mwenyewe. Maybe konya kuko na wezi, wewe ndo ukazaga uwinzi. Unaget? But Kenya God say anasema ni I'm showing you these things because I love you and because I actually want a better future for you. You can actually become a better man than you are right now. Unanielewa? That is not what the Lord is calling us to. Tukiendelea, one thing I need to also emphasize is that tumeona hizo vitu kwa life yetu saa hii. Unapata mimi personally ilikuwa hiyo ni kitu nilijianzishia. Pona ikuwa kwetu. Ilianzaga na mimi. But kutilifanyika ni ndio niweze kustop hiyo maisha kuona hiyo stuff. I took responsibility. Daniela, as men, sometimes we escape from responsibility one way or another. But let me acha tuone Kenya dictionary inasema kuhusu responsibility. Inasema this refers to the duty of having authority or control over something or someone. Meaning, where as an individual, when you brother, uko 22, 23, 25 at most, naweza patia msea mwenye ako hapa uko above that is a job. So unapata at this particular point, if you don't become responsible with your life, where are you going as a man? Unajenga life yako aje kama mwanaume. Unaget? Because sometimes responsibility comes with a cost. Ukiendelea kusoma hiyo story ya Gideon, venye alienda ka pull down those Asherah poles from his family, those Baal idols from his family, wajamaa community walikaribu hadi wamuue. Na sometimes kuteki responsibility kwa maisha yako inamaanisha wase kukumisunderstand. People will actually misunderstand who you are, but that's a cost you have to pay to get to where God needs you to be and to actually become in that mighty man of valor. And responsibility is taking responsibility for the things that wasn't even your fault. Wanna get? Polygamy ulipata kwa familia yako, but uko na chance ya kusimama na kusema it ends with me. Wanna get? Maybe ulipata alcoholism kwenyu, but unakama unasema as John, it ends with me. Mi watoi wangu wataijua ati baba yana kunywanga. Mi watoi wangu wataijua kuna bibi mwingine except mother yao peke yao. Wanna get? You end up starting a new culture for your family, a new way of your life for your family. Jutukika hivi, unasemanga, for example, let's say jinangu ni Kenite. So unasemanga, there's a Kenite way of doing things. Ukisikia about the Kenyatta family, nini na kama kwa kichwa yako? Ukisikia tu jina the Kenyatta family, nini na kama kwa kichwa yako? Pesa, si ndio? Because they are wealthy. So the question is, wewe jina yako maybe hapa ni John, maybe Peter ama nini ama Dirango, whatever your name is. What kind of your name, what kind of way your life, unataka maisha yako ikuwe aje ikiwa associated na jina yako na familia yako. Juu tukisema Osama unasikia ni jina gani? Inaleta nini? Terrorism, si ndio? Watu wameua. How do you want your name to be associated by? Nanielewa? Are we together? Tuko pamoja my boys? So you need to take responsibility as men. Napa pia nikaandika in Gideon, in what something I wrote here, it says in Gideon's case we see that he goes on and tears down the altar of Baal and Asherah poles in his family, almost being killed by his own people. But sometimes the cost we have to pay is that some friendships have to die, some associations have to die, have to come to an end to make sure God's perfect will in your life has to be accomplished. And in Gideon's case, he went on and made sure Israel was actually saved. Leo, nataka to reflect. Because some of us here, tumerealize kuna vitu tuna struggle nazo as brothers. Unanielewa? But at the end of the day, I'm very sure, mzazi wako akuja kikuona ukigraduate pale kwa graduation score, whatever graduation score iko, you wouldn't want your parent to feel ashamed about you. Ukweli uongo. Si ni ukweli? You wouldn't want your friends to be ashamed about you. Si ni ukweli? You wouldn't want, even let's say if you're planning to have a family after, you wouldn't want your wife and kids to be ashamed about you. Si ni ukweli? Because at the end of the day, as men here, we want a space where we are celebrated, a space where ukifika, people actually honor you as a man. But that can only come if you take responsibility for the things that were started by your family, by your fathers, and also some of the things that you started yourself. Unanielewa? And sikuambia tu uende upigane nazo, because kama umepigana nazo at this particular, if you're still struggling with them, si umefail. The only option for you to actually to concentrate tu hapa, najua game imeshika, to concentrate tu hapa tu kiasi.